Have it.
I beg to move that this House do now adjourn.
The question is that this House do now adjourn. Holly Lynch.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I've sought to secure this debate today to be an advocate for the great work of the Interfaith Network, which feels more important and more necessary than ever before. But also to be very clear with the Government that it's faced with imminent closure if the Government does not deliver on its July 2023 commitment to continue to provide funding. Here in the UK, we are a religiously diverse country. The Interfaith Network was founded in 1987 as a way to advance public knowledge and mutual understanding of the teachings, traditions and practices of the different faith communities in Britain, including an awareness both of their distinctive features and their common ground, and to promote good relations between people of different faiths in this country. And I don't think anyone can find fault with that.
Will the honourable member give way?
I certainly give way.
I thank the honourable member for securing this debate, and I'm a big fan of Hounslow Friends of Faith because of the work they've done in bringing communities together, particularly at times of heightened community tensions that affect our communities, but also other activities such as a public health video on suicide prevention. Does the honourable member not agree with me that the success of our local Friends of Faith or equivalent organisations is only possible because of having a robust national organisation supporting them in their work?
Well, I'm really grateful to my honourable friend for that intervention. She's absolutely right. I join her in paying tribute to Hounslow Friends of Faith. She shared a really powerful example of where those faith communities can work together. They can really deliver truly beneficial projects and initiatives that go deep into communities, perhaps in ways that other statutory agencies could not. And so I join her in paying tribute to that local group. I'll certainly give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way and allowing me to follow the intervention by my honourable friend for Brentford and Isleworth, because indeed in the letter that I wrote to the Secretary of State on the funding issue in May last year, I made the point that for almost 4 decades the Interfaith Network UK has been dedicated to increasing understanding and cooperation between peoples of different faiths. And does she agree with Charanjit Singh, who is the chair of Hounslow Friends of Faith, indeed making such a contribution has been outlined at times of tension when dialogue is most needed, that we need the Interfaith Network to be supported so that the national body can make sure that local organisations can do their vital grassroots work.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend once again making a really powerful point for the support that the national network provides to those local community groups that do then facilitate and host that dialogue, which isn't always easy but is absolutely vital, and we're all so grateful for the role and the benefit that it then has within our communities and the way it brings people together at a time when we most need that really important work to be undertaken. So she's absolutely right. The Interfaith Network, or IFN, member bodies include national faith community representative bodies from the Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim and Sikh faiths, such as the Board of Deputies of British Jews, the Hindu Council UK, the Muslim Council of Britain and the Methodist Council of Britain, to name just a handful. I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. In my own beautiful city of Manchester, we have an incredible activities of interfaith work that goes on. And the point I actually want to raise today with the member is 2 weeks ago, an article in the Telegraph insinuated that the Secretary of State for Levelling Up is concerned that the Muslim Council of Britain is a member of the Interfaith Network. The Muslim Council of Britain upholds British values and champions mutual respect and tolerance by coming together through interfaith initiatives. It has long been a trusted group consulted by many members of this House, though the Conservative government have consistently rejected Muslim civil society groups. So does my honourable friend agree with me that these attacks on the Interfaith Network and the Muslim Council of Britain are disappointing and take away from the important work that they do?
Again, I'm grateful to my honourable friend. It's another powerful example of how that interfaith work is so important in his part of the world, in Greater Manchester, and we're hearing those examples already from right across the country. I know that the Interfaith Network is incredibly proud of hosting the Muslim Council of Britain amongst its members. I know he does a great deal of work with them, and long may that continue, because they are an incredibly important partner in that dialogue, in those conversations, and again can carry some of those messages deep into communities in a way that some of those other organisations cannot. So he's made an incredibly powerful point. As well as those that I have mentioned, there are smaller but significant faith communities also represented, including the Quakers, Baha'i, Spiritualists and Pagans. Its members also include national and regional interfaith organisations, local interfaith bodies and educational and academic bodies with an interest in multi-faith and interfaith issues, such as the University of Salford Faith Centre and the Cambridge Interfaith Programme. I'll give way here first and I'll come back to you.
First of all, Mr Deputy Speaker, can I congratulate the Honourable Lady for Halifax for bringing this forward. Spoke to her beforehand. She's brought a subject which is close to her heart, close to my heart, I believe close to the hearts of everyone who is in the chamber here tonight. The Honourable Lady will know that I'm chair of the APPG of Freedom of Religious Belief. That we speak of for those with Christian faith, those with other faiths and those with no faith, because we encapsulate, or we try to encapsulate the very point that the Honourable Lady is putting forward. This is an issue which I'm greatly supportive of. Does the Honourable Lady believe that the appointment of the Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion and Belief was a step in the right direction and has achieved a great deal, and yet more can and should be done to show support for all faiths throughout the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and also in recognition of the sterling work that is carried out by faith-based groups that the Honourable Lady is referring to across the UK?
I'm really grateful to my honourable friend, and it would not be an adjournment debate without a thoughtful and powerful contribution from the honourable member for Strangford. He does a great deal of work in this area, and he himself is an enormous advocate for so many of those faith groups that he brings together, that he is a champion for in this place. And so I want to pay tribute to him for that, and he's made a very, very good point as part of his contribution. I thank him for that. I'll give way to the honourable member.
Thank you. I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way, and indeed thank her for initiating this debate. In Harrow, certainly, we have a very strong interfaith community that brings together everyone from every religion, organised together in a very positive way, which is extremely helpful, particularly at times of trouble. However, there have been criticisms of the Interfaith Network, not necessarily about its aims, but about the way it has been run. I've also had supportive support from some of the elements within Harrow to say what a wonderful job it's doing, but I've also heard criticism of the way it's being run. And I wonder if she's had a chance to examine those criticisms and see whether there's any foundation to them whatsoever.
Well, I welcome the intervention, and as part of the preparations for this debate, have certainly looked into any concerns, any criticisms that are made of the Interfaith Network. Now, I don't think it would come as a surprise to us that those who are uncomfortable about interfaith work, I think that's where actually that partnership approach very much needs allies in this place. I have looked carefully at the way it's organised, at the way it is run. It appears to me to be incredibly diligent. And when I've touched on the broad membership that he has also alluded to, I think that is what demonstrates that such critical mass of bringing together those different organisations that says to me, nobody's doing this work as successfully as they are, that it's effective as it is because so many people trust the work that they're doing and have bought into its aims and the way it conducts its business. So I have been able to thoroughly satisfy myself as part of this process that it's doing very good work, it's run in a very diligent way, it's effective at what it does, and hopefully over the course of the rest of my contribution we can satisfy further any points to that effect.
You should give way on that point.
I certainly will.
Just on the issue of the criticisms themselves, what's restored my faith and confidence in the network itself is the way it's responded to some of those criticisms in a very open way, inviting people in to explain their views and not getting drawn into what could be quite sectarian rows, internecine strifes on religious grounds and other grounds. So I think it's in many ways the way it's reacted has demonstrated the strength of the organisation.
Yeah. Again, I'm very grateful to my right honourable friend for that point, and some of their publications, The letter from the co-chairs to the editor of the Telegraph only this week, I think, has been very candid, very transparent, and incredibly accountable in the work that they do and the way that they go about it. So I would entirely agree with him on that point. I will, and then I'm going to have to make some...
I'm very, very grateful. Isn't it clear that the need for the kind of dialogue across faith divides, which the Interfaith Network facilitates, is more needed at this moment than ever? Unless the government keeps its promise to provide funding for this financial year, we're going to lose that capacity entirely. Wouldn't that be a terrible tragedy?
He is exactly right, and I thank him for making that point. We need the work that they do now more than ever. If we lost that, to lose those friendships, that trust that has been born out of that facilitated membership, those programmes, the initiative, the dialogue that has been built up over years and years and years, to lose that, it will take an awful long time to rebuild it. Should funding perhaps even become available in the future, it will be gone. It will take a lot of time and effort to put it back together, and that would be an absolute travesty, as I say, work that we need now more than ever. So I will make some progress, but all of the IFN's members are clearly listed on their website. Those I've mentioned just give you a hint of the range and number of members who proudly belong to the Interfaith Network. Examples of its work include leading the programme of events to celebrate National Interfaith Week every November, and this year's events, which included a parliamentary drop-in, engaged more people than ever before. They publish practical guidance such as the Looking After One Another, the Safety and Security of Our Faith Communities Guide, in partnership with DLUC, Home Office, the CPS, the National Police Chiefs Council, the National Fire Chiefs Council and the EHRC. They've supported the development and strengthening of local interfaith engagement through publications such as Deep Connections, Women's Local Interfaith Initiatives in the UK, published in March of last year. They bring together national faith community bodies to discuss topics such as faith and organ donation, social care and hate crime, and to share good practice on working with other faith communities. IFN monitors and evaluates its work very carefully to ensure that it's continuing to be effective in enabling an ever-growing number of people in the UK to take part and benefit from stronger interfaith relations, tackle ignorance, prejudice and hatred linked to religious identity, grow their religious literacy, develop bonds of trust and friendship, and cooperate on social action projects for the benefit of wider society. While so many MPs will speak with great pride about representing diverse communities, as the former chair of the APPG for Social Integration, I also recognise that we need to provide opportunities for people to engage, to interact and to learn about each other. Only when we nurture the relationships and friendships between different people do we establish trust and break down barriers. The international backdrop to this interfaith work here in the UK means, as we've already discussed, that it could not be more important. The horror of Hamas's attack on Israel on the 7th of October, followed by the utter devastation of Israel's response upon the people of Gaza, has inevitably impacted on communities here in the UK. Tel Mama recorded 1,432 anti-Muslim cases between October the 7th and December the 13th, which was a sevenfold increase in reported incidents. The Community Safety Trust reports that it has seen an increase in anti-Jewish hate acts of 534% in the same period compared to the same period last year. We know that we have to do more to promote and nurture trust, understanding and respect between different communities, and this feels like a time when we should be supporting, not undermining, interfaith work. Alongside this, I'm aware that the government last published its 4-year hate crime action plan in 2016. It was updated in 2018 but hasn't been updated since then, nor has a new plan been published. So I would be grateful if the Minister could clarify, given these stark increases in unacceptable hate crimes, when we can expect some progress on that front. Now, from 2001 onwards, IFN has sought and received grant funding from government which pays for its very small team of 4 people and to facilitate those incredibly important meetings. Since then, funding from government under successive administrations towards IFN's work programme has been a vital component of funding, alongside other kinds of support such as donations from individuals, trusts, faith communities and other bodies and membership fees. However, it was a real setback when on the 31st of March last year, IFN received a letter from an official at the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities saying that further funding would not be given from April 2023 onwards. I, like many MPs who are here, tabled written PQs, wrote to ministers and asked questions in the chamber to query the logic of this and raise concerns about the way it had been handled. However, on the 7th of July 2023, IFN received a letter from DLUC saying that, following a review by ministers of funded programmes across the communities and integration portfolio, funding was now being offered to IFN. The funding was offered in the form of access to 2022-23 underspend plus some new funding. The letter explained that the money would be for use from July 2023 to March 24. It would be subject to grant funding agreements and other conditions. Despite the best efforts of IFN and their allies, including many of us here in Parliament, as things currently stand, the July 23 to March 24 grant funding agreement has not been provided, and therefore that funding cannot be accessed. I'm reliably informed that when the present offer of funding was made last July, the letter said that funding would not be provided beyond March 24. So while the IFN continues to try to find alternative solutions, the truth is that its very small team of staff have been given notice of redundancy. The Interfaith Network is about to close. It is on life support without clarity from the government today of whether financial support will be forthcoming. Now, as we've touched on, there are critics of the Interfaith Network, and I think some of that is inevitable. There will always be some who feel threatened by interfaith work, but I would hope that this government would be proud to support it. In addressing some of the criticisms which have been made, I think it's worth stressing that the co-chairs of the network have made clear that IFN has a long-standing policy on the making of statements which precludes making direct comment on overseas events, and instead members work together on responding to the impact of any such events on communities here in the UK. I also think it's worth saying that anyone seeking to criticise the Interfaith Network for failing to single-handedly deliver world peace would be painfully misguided. But the work that they do and the dialogue they facilitate is only a good thing. And I hope the Minister will agree with that, at least in principle, that we need more of it and not less. I am looking forward to hearing what the Minister has to say, but before closing, can I take this opportunity to pay tribute to the co-chairs of the Interfaith Network, Mr Narendra Wagila and Reverend Canon Hilary Barber, as well as the Executive Director Harriet Crabtree. Hilary Barber is the Reverend of Halifax Minster in my constituency and has been instrumental in establishing Calderdale's Interfaith Council, as well as now holding this very special national role. I want to pay a tribute to him and all those who work so hard in our communities on interfaith initiatives to benefit all of our communities.
Will my honourable friend give way to...
I certainly will.
I thought I would let you make a little bit of progress, but thank you. Can I thank you for bringing this important debate and draw the House's attention to my register of interest, where I'm very proud to be a trustee of Interfaith Glasgow. Interfaith Glasgow run a weekend club for refugees in the city, which builds connections between different groups but reduces social isolation, and in the long run actually saves the government money by trying to provide preventative support to people who need it, as well as bringing people together in their various communities. Does she agree, just picking up on something she said earlier on in her speech, that these are the sorts of initiatives really that bring our communities together? And at a time now, perhaps more than any time in recent times, where our communities seem divided, even though I'm not sure they are as much as it seems, and where the news is often full of these quite negative stories of division between communities, initiatives like this and others that she's mentioned can really help to bring people together and should be supported in any way they can.
I'm really grateful to my honourable friend for sharing that example from Glasgow, which just demonstrates interfaith work at its very, very best. Getting out and delivering those initiatives, those programmes that are so effective at bringing people together when it does feel like we are living in quite a divided world. I want to thank him for his work as part of the Glasgow Interfaith Group and all those that he works with who make that programme possible. But I think from right across the chamber and right across the country, I hope the Minister has heard the value of that work in our communities, but with the support of the National Interfaith Network. bringing people together in a way that we absolutely need them to do, to deliver that important dialogue that isn't always easy, but is effective. It does work. Those conversations we will all feel the benefit of, and I very much hope the Minister has some positive news for us in his response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr Deputy Speaker. And can I, first of all, and in all sincerity, thank the Honourable Lady, the Member for Halifax, both in the way that she approached the debate and the very strong and powerful advocacy that she's presented to the House of the work and the value and the merit of the network. And she set out the case very clearly indeed. I'm delighted to be responding to this debate. The policy minister on this issue is, of course, my noble friend Baroness Scott, and I'm the faith minister in the department, which is why it falls to me to reply to this adjournment debate this evening. I've been very struck, Mr Deputy Speaker, by the heartfelt and very sincere comments made by colleagues from across the House, from both of the main parties, against a backdrop of increasing tension, and quite a lot of that tension being of the root cause of being religious and historical differences, the vital and important work that is done across our communities, across our societies, by so many groups and organisations, including the Interfaith Network, to build bridges, to develop understanding, and to host and facilitate conversations. If ever there was a case of George Orr being more important than war, it is that. And I commend all of those of all faith groups across the United Kingdom who partake in that important work. And the government is fully persuaded of the importance of developing and maintaining strong relationships across faiths and beliefs. It's crucial to the fabric of our nation. We know full well, Mr Deputy Speaker, that faith communities play a key role in society, not just within their own faith community themselves, but very often you will find those same people motivated to get involved with a whole mesh of community networks and other voluntary organisations as they meet colleagues, develop friendships and get each other involved. It's a crucial part and a vital part of people's identity. And as I say, we fully support the invaluable work being done by people around the country who are inspired by their faith and are motivated by that faith to do good for others.
Will the Minister give way?
Of course I'll give way.
I think the Minister is speaking very eloquently on this subject. So can I just mention the Woking people of faith? Woking has some extremely strong faith communities, but they also work strongly together. And that's been great over the years in terms of community cohesion. And never has it been more important than at the moment when our borough faces financial challenges. And it's the churches and our mosques that are stepping up to work even harder to help the vulnerable. So I agree with what he is saying very much. And I do think that it would be helpful to have more support at a national level for these fantastic local initiatives.
Well, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, and I will be speaking to the Leader of his Council tomorrow on the other wider matter about local government finance, but we're not here to discuss that this evening. But he does make, I think, an incredibly valid and important point, which is, and it was the point that I was seeking to make too, which is those who are involved in faith groups then reach out to do other things in our communities and societies, bringing people together. And at a time when people often feel terribly isolated, where the only community that they think exists is on the screen which they hold in their hands, those sort of interactions of conversation and common humanity are so phenomenally important. And I make absolutely no apology, Mr Deputy Speaker, as declaring myself a proud multiculturalist and believing entirely that our country is stronger, is richer, is more powerful, and I don't mean financially richer, or muscularly more powerful, but we are a better place as a result of our faith and other communities in our country doing all that they do. We are incredibly, as I say, supportive of those efforts of bringing people together. Now, His Majesty the King has often reflected on the significance of better understanding of faiths and has spoken of the importance of remaining united in partnership and in friendship. We know full well that he recently held an event at the Palace to speak with young people, and crucially important that young people are not seen that faith is a sort of abstract thing or something for older people. It is something that unites the generations, but about the importance too about interfaith and how learning and understanding more about different faiths can help about bring positive change in our society. And as we live in an increasingly diverse society, for which I make no apology, and I don't think anybody does in the House, improving interfaith relations is even more important. Now, the conflict between Israel and Hamas and its impact on community tensions in the UK has brought into sharp focus a number of issues. We must continue to encourage, if at any other time, it's certainly now, a greater understanding of different faiths and beliefs to help foster better relationships and eliminate all forms of intolerance or hatred. And since it's... Of course I give way to the right honourable gentleman.
I'm conscious the time is running out. Is the government going to honour the promise it made to the Interfaith Network in its letter of July last year?
I will come on to that in a moment if the right honourable gentleman would just bear with me. The department is, as per its letter of the 7th of July 2023, which was sent to Harriet Crabtree OBE, is undertaking a variety of analyses with regards to the network. And we are hope that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, will be making an announcement in the not too distant future, but I'm afraid I'm not able to confirm that this evening. Of course, I could wait to the Honourable Lady.
Stress the point again that those staff have been made redundant and they are working their notice. It would be such a devastating tragedy if that money comes too late, that by government inaction it's been forced to close. I just want to stress that point to him one more time. Thank you.
Let me assure the Honourable Lady that I hear precisely what she has said. I will communicate that through to ministerial colleagues and to officials within the department who are dealing with this matter. She makes the point powerfully. I hear what she says. I think any organisation which secures funding from the public sector, be it central government or local government, always values certainty and security, and I'm seized of that, and I'm also seized of the time pressures to which she alludes. We will be making, of course.
For giving way, could he confirm whether the department has also been in touch with the Interfaith Network to say that there is going to be a forthcoming announcement?
Well, as per the letter of the 7th of July, it set out to Dr. Crabtree the funding criteria. That letter has not either been rescinded or updated, so that stands as the sort of as the de facto, if you will, communication between the department and the network, and officials and ministers will be working on that. As I say, and we hope, or the department hopes to be able to make an announcement in pretty short order. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I don't think I can give way because I think I've got about 57 seconds left before the end of this debate. Sorry? Sign the cheque, says the Honourable Lady. I have neither chequebook nor pen to hand. But let me say in closing, the work of the network is understood. The importance of that work is very clear. The network is not the only body that provides forums and organisations to deliver those inter-community and interfaith discussions. There are others, but we hope to be able to make an announcement in due course. Thank you.
The question is that this House to now adjourn. Let me say aye. Aye. You know, I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.
The proceeding has ended. 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 The proceeding has ended.